there was a surprise present for them, and that there would be jobs and housing awaiting for them when they arrived. This was obviously a sadistic lie. Not only did those responsible for this stunt know that there was no housing and no employment awaiting the migrants, they also very intentionally chose not to call ahead to any single office authority on Martha's Vineyard so that even the most basic human needs arrangements could be made. Ensuring that no help awaited the migrants at all was the entire point. They were provided with a cartoonishly simple map of Martha's Vineyard and the United States and a brief brochure containing snippets from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts website and instructions to change their address with USCIS when they relocated. This is especially troubling as anyone with even the most basic understanding of the immigration proceedings knows that USCIS was not the agency with whom the migrants would have to record their addresses and has nothing to do with their cases in any way. It is clear that this was an intentional attempt to ensure that these migrants were removed in absentia when they failed to change their address with the proper agency. This was a purposeful derailment designed to prevent people from complying with federal immigration policies. This is problematic because the state should not be interfering with federal immigration policy. Before they boarded the planes, the migrants were processed by agents of the Department of Homeland Security, who listed falsified addresses on the migrants' paperwork. Agents apparently chose random homeless shelters all across the country, from Washington to Florida, to list the migrants' mailing addresses.
It's disgusting. This is so vile. This is so ugly. I've never seen anybody so full of hate and venom and bile as Abbott and Ron DeSantis. And they're using the most vulnerable people. And by the way, Florida, wake up, pay attention, Florida, because these were Venezuelans. We have a very, very, very healthy, large Venezuelan community here in South Florida. Are you next? Are you? This is what the Republicans would say if a Democrat was doing this, that you would be next. They're coming after you. I swear to God, these are very desperate, vulnerable people with children. One of the kids was 2 years old. Another one was 4 years old. Some of them are being, bussed across the country by Abbott to Vice President Kamala Harris's house. Why Vice President Kamala Harris's house? Why? Because she's brown? Is that why? And all they had, when they got to Kamala Harris's house was clear plastic trash bags with everything that, they owned stuffed inside. I mean, this is just bizarre. This is just the strangest, lawless thing that I think we've ever seen. Because, just for clarity, everybody understands when we say Department of Homeland Security or when we say Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE, we're talking about federal agencies. Do you know why? Because immigration is a federal function. It has nothing to do with the states. And when a governor, the executive of a state, starts to go to his other executive friend in another state, and this is exactly what happened. Okay, so Ron didn't have any migrants. He didn't have any brown people that he could, punish the people in the North with. So he went to Greg Abbott, and he said to Greg Abbott, give me some brown people. Give me some. And Greg said, okay, I'll send you some. Like they're not human. And so Greg sent Ron 50 brown people, 50 Venezuelans. And Ron said, thank you. And then Ron put them on charter flights and dumped them in Martha's Vineyard after lying to them. And this is important. The lying, it matters in our system of governance, in our justice system. To lie to somebody or to make false promises to somebody in order to get them into a vehicle, in order to relocate or displace them, that's called kidnapping. Think about the guy down by the river in the van, okay? And he's got candy. And he says to your kid, hey, little girl, want a piece of candy? Get in the van. He has just kidnapped her. You understand? And that is what has happened here. There was a kidnapping. because governors have no role to play in relocating asylum seekers, which is what these people were. They're not even here illegally. They're here legally to make claims of asylum. That is why the address detail is so startling and upsetting and ugly, because they were told to register with NCIS, which is not the Department of Homeland Security, nor is it ICE. And they were given fake addresses to report to. And the addresses that they were told to report to in order to see through their asylum claims were offices in Washington and offices in Texas and offices in Seattle. Now, how were these migrants who were supposed to be going to Boston? They were told they were going to Boston, where there would be work, where there would be, papers, an expedited, legal paper experience where they could then become workers. They were induced with lies to get on those planes, thinking they were going to Boston. They weren't going to Boston. They were being used as human props and dumped in Martha's Vineyard, where, by the way, and I know there's yachts on Martha's Vineyard, and I know that there's, luxurious houses, and I know that that Obama has a house there, and Oprah has a house there, and, what's his name from the late night show, Seth, he's got a house. Yeah, well, there's also people that live on the island year round, and you know what they do? They're farmers and fishermen. They have every winter food pantries open up where they can go to get food because there's really not a whole lot of fishing that can be done in the midst of the winter, okay? And the farming is done for the winter. So, they're scrappy. There are people who live off the land on that island. And Ron DeSantis doesn't know anything about them. He doesn't know anything about their goodness, their decency, or how they take care of each other in their own community, let alone how they welcome in people that they have been trying to infect the Vineyard people with. And every time they try to infect the Vineyard people with undesirables, with lots of children, like in the reverse freedom rides, they did the same damn thing. They sent them to Hyannis. Why? Because that's where JFK had a compound. And they told the black people in the South in Arkansas that they were going to JFK. And JFK was going to greet them and meet them, and he was going to help them and get them settled. The people in Massachusetts, they didn't balk. They didn't shrug it up. They said, don't worry, we got you. We got you. We'll help you. Yes, but I have 7 kids. Apparently, the white citizens councils back in the day, they went out and they tried to find women with 7 kids, women with large families, to freak out the white people in the North even more. They refused to freak. They have opened their doors to everyone who has come to their island, and they have helped them, regardless of whether they were kidnapped or not.